here's something I learned, and I think the seeds were planted from those days with Dr. Devonish. You adjust how you listen, don't get people to adjust how they speak. People talk how them talk. What you have to adjust is the way you listen to them, because you're used to a particular sound, and then also patience.
Welcome everybody to Talk To Me, the program where we sit down with some good people and chat about them life and the work where them a do.
Talk to me, let me tell you my story. Hear a little something about the journey. A Jamaica make me. Just talk to me, talk to me, talk to me, talk to me, talk to me.
This is Talk To Me Season 2, and my name Susanna Blagrove. On the show today, we are chat to actor, writer, poet, and performer Fabian Thomas. Fabian love positive vibes, and him put that in a whatever him do as one life coach and one motivational speaker. In 2012, him start the performing group Tribe Sankofa, and it's still a go on strong. In 2018, him published one book named New Thoughts, New Words.
Me see you in a one movie on YouTube from CPTC. And as you mentioned, English bird, me did hear the English accent tick, tick, tick. And me did ask if it real.
It were very real. In fact, a part of why I get the role, because Uncle Charles Ayat say that little you think can act, but I said, remember tell me saying come from England. So when them called me, when CPTC called me and say, you basically get the part, because Uncle Charles, but you come from England, don't it? And then they say, you can retrieve the accent.
Oh, so wait.
Yeah, man. So I'd been here for a while, and them say, you can retrieve the accent because he's an English boy you play who literally just touched on Frank. And I said, oh, okay. And that's so that it helped get the part.
Okay. So at that time, they know you didn't actually there already.
We did there already. Come from the 7. So my parents come back to Jamaica on the 7.
But you did born over so.
Born into England. I catch here, people could not understand me. And they used to bond me. Entire conversation, them not and smile as my parents. What you say? And here's the funny thing, Susie. Me at that age, 15, one piece of tongue in me, mangle the patois, mash up the patois. My mother used to laugh after me. People used to say, but I try, come on, people understand me, so me I try, or what? Even with the every English accent said so, for the patois. And my daddy did me, him say, just self. Him did, because he try and struggle and getting frustrated. He said, look here, just talk how you talk. You know, the Jamaicans who come here now, we're not in England again. He said, but just be yourself. Don't put on an accent. And I've never forget that. Because if you see the struggle, this struggle real, it used to grieve me. A conversation and then they said to my parents, what you say?
Oh God. Jesus, so it you feel like it gone now? Like the English accent, it gone?
I think it gone, but let me tell you, when foreigners in particular, and some Jamaicans, them say the flavor, them hear the mix up, them say them hear Jamaican, or sometimes them say them hear island, and they say there is no such place named island. But them say them hear the flavor that is Jamaican English. So I think foreigners hear it more than Jamaican. I think, yeah, but I think it flattened now. It definitely flattened now. But let me come up proper. Me say, bloke, blimey, mom, what's going on? What that? And you know, in England, they said the ing is a K sound. So everything I do, as somebody used to talk, I mean, never left England, born in England, left England. And even though my parents them had Jamaican accent, parents them did get a mild British accent. So even though that was spoken around me, and all my cousins who I grew up with, them did man England too. So tick every English accent.
Jesus.
Little English boy like Jamaica.
So you're born and grow England till you come back to Jamaica. And you're there since them time there. Yeah. All right, and nice the mix. So which part did you go primary and basic school and high school? Or the education part we go?
When they got 2 private prep schools. So one did name Up Prep and then was Crosses, so parents moved me.
So wait, what part that did they? Here or over there?
Oh, here. So in England, when they got one who named St. Andrew Primary.
All right.
And that was interesting. I have vague memories of that. 2 things stand out to me. One was a little white who did afraid of me. I'm a black. Afraid, racist. Man, she used to ball and say me I do to man bad. My parents had to go down to the school. And it was just sheer racism what she was taught. Whoa. So she was afraid of me because I'm black and me a thief and me did the was a check to her. Me not know what this is going to do. I remember she had the red hair and freckles. I remember that.
Wow. And
then my best friend was a white boy named Andrew. I think his name was Andrew. And one of my parents found out say me need glasses.
Oh, okay.
One day my father come for me and wait one long time for me to come out. And we come out, him said, what are you doing so long? And my friend say, very casually, children picnic. Him say, oh, Fabian had to write down homework, had to copy this stuff off my book. And my father said, so why am I to copy it off the book? And he said, oh, because he can't see the board. At the front, he's looking at the front, but as kids, it never occurred to me. So that's all my parents them say, what? So I think my daddy said, go back inside and show me where you sit. That's what he did.
Okay.
I was near the front, and I saw them say, no, man. So me and him, I developed this thing where him write down the things, and then I copy it out of his book. That's how a couple of parents them find out say, me didn't need glasses.
Okay, all right. I
said, after
that, you see, you come back to Jamaica now, you start go. Where the school name?
Albert Prep. And they never stay good. They mean-spirited. They were not nice people.
Okay.
And my parents said, no. And it was me, but just all general vibe at the school. Them said, My father never rap with them. My father didn't take foolishness. It was not let me tell you, bring a warrior, him tell me, say, look here, them don't want to be in them country. We're not from here and we're not staying here. A place named Jamaica. So that my ears them full of story about Jamaica from there in England. Because my parents them make it to me understand, say, not get too comfortable long here.
All right, nice.
Don't want to hear. So they moved me to Flo Thompson Prep on Burlington Avenue. It was lovely. The opposite of Albert Prep. And we stayed there, so to me, come on in just I got Calabar.
Oh, Calabar you did go. Yes. Calabar.
Up to sixth form and then from sixth form to UE.
Oh, see, all right. So what did you do at UE?
UE. Mass communications.
Of course.
It was just literature then. It wasn't literature in English yet.
Okay.
So I did my major was mass comm and a minor in lit. And the discipline at Caramark was radio. I specialize in radio.
Okay. So you have radio voice.
So them say actually I push to get more work in a radio now. I go on like a voice something. And I say, you know what? Because it's an income earner.
Of course.
And then a lot of people, unless them see you, it's so interesting. People see somebody comedian and people who do them assume to them people that can do character voice and people like me that, but people like me who look more serious, them don't think you can do it. So if I put it out there, so them know say and the character voice and animation and so it's something I push to radio. Mama Ken. Mama Ken, the one the Forbes, Faye, Ellington, Margaret, Newland, some big bad bowler artists to teach me the out.
Nice.
Radio, yeah, man.
Another thing for real. All right, after you do mass communication, you did go further after that?
No, me go work into the advertising industry. Dunlop Carbon Cotton. And the creative director there, Claudette Cook, had this idea. So she wanted some young, fresh minds in the department. So she hired 4 of us, 3 of my friends. And that's where I met Sarah Manley. Sarah was there. It was me, my friend Sophie, and Jackie. We were all at Caramark. So we got hired and then we went to Dunn and met Sarah there. So we were her this experiment. She said, let's get some young people in the mix and put them in charge of, so I was copywriting concepts and Jack focused on TV. And it was nice. And some of the less friendly people that they play the car with the pen. because we were all young.
Oh,
Said,
God.
the playpen, this is Miss Cook's playpen.
Experiments.
Yeah, but it worked. Her the idea worked. So, and they actually maintained it even after she leave. So even when she left, they kept it and we stayed there. And even when we moved office and then we got into a bigger space. Yeah, man. So the idea worked. She had this idea. She ran it by the people to get some young people with media training to do copywriting, write scripts, campaigns, and ting. It worked.
Nice. All right, so backtrack a little now. So when they did their school, what kind of club and them something they used to go in?
In high school?
High school, primary school, any one of them. What kind of club they did interested in?
Primary school, no club.
No time for that.
me just remember it being a lovely, but it feels safe and loved and seen. And with it, Miss Thompson was a lovely woman. She teach me. I think looking back now, that was probably my first exposure to diversity and respect. But there's a guy in the school who had fits, epilepsy. And she taught us not to be afraid of him. So when him have a seizure, she teach you what to do, help him to move the furniture. Never forget that. She walked as she said, and she said, I love him, daughter. And then she said, him have a thing, and she call him name. And she tell us, say, it means him to have seizure. She described the seizure that he might shake, he might fret at the moment, and she walked us through all of that. So that if it happened and no teacher was around, and it was amazing, we know what to do. We move the chair themselves, not hurt himself. Somebody call somebody, and even if he blew up himself, nobody never laughed at him. She taught with that.
Yes.
And that was one of my biggest things. And when we get older, to say, if you teach children from early, it stay with them and they understand. You don't have to laugh at somebody who has a illness, but somebody have to set that up for you and say, we can choose to do this instead. And that's one of the biggest things for Thompson that I always with just the love and energy and how we got to play and sing. She was always singing some kind of songs in school. So it never felt like school to me. I always felt like it was an extended play date. Yet we did learn coming past, but it never felt like I remember anybody being punished, but we must have get punished. Somebody must get licked. But I remember that's not prevalent in my consciousness. What I remember is the joy, the laughter, the music, and the way we were called to look after each other and the way we felt safe there. God bless her. God bless her. God bless her. And Calabar now, magazine committee, debating team. We win the national competition. I was the lead speaker, Ray. I never really got into the quiz team. I liked it. I used to watch Train. I was at the choir. That was my introduction to drama. I decided to get involved in that introduction to drama, choir, student council. The ear of me at Susie, when they asked me to run for head boy, in a FIFA, they tell them, say the head boy is a figurehead position. I have no desire to be a figurehead.
What?
I declare, I said, the head boy, figurehead position in this school. I have no desire to be anybody's figurehead.
That's nice.
The principal looked like if he could have thumped me.
But you could have bright.
But everything else, like me in the Red Magazine committee, yes, was heavily involved. Again, Calabar was a place where development happened. I'm a personality, I'm an energy and leader, love of literature. That's a big thing. I had a literature teacher, big her up. She was Miss Stanster, and she didn't marry her boyfriend there, and she became Mrs. I forget her married name. She did realize that I love literature. To the point sometimes me and she want to talk in the class because nobody is to read the book. She said, Fabian, since you've read the book, what do you think? And so she started to give me other books to read because she realized that I love reading and love literature. And if I did love a book, we'd have finish it and start on the second reading from a classmate, them done first reading. So she saw that and started to say, I think you'll like this book. I think you'll like this book. And so she really fed my love of words and literature. She and a teacher named Miss Barnwell who had I don't know what mental illness it was, but she unraveled in front of us, and it got worse and worse. And as kids, it's something we feel guilty about. We used to tease her and laugh after her, but she had a thing where the top three essays, she'd make us read them in class out loud. And then she'd say with me, she said, Fabian, it sounds even better when you're reading it and we get more marks. So, we start perform the essay there. Yeah. And that's how we find the spoken word voice, because what? If we read it sweet, we get more marks. So every time we go, make good dog in the essay.
Yeah.
So again, unwittingly, helped me find my performer's voice, this sense of lifting things off the page, which later on we go do radio. But Miss Barnwell, call up her name, and she'd say sometimes when she hear the things, it sound better. So you get 2 marks or 5 marks more on the high marks she'd already given you. For me, them their teacher. Who,
nice one.
Even if you don't realize it, then them instill something in you, them see something and then nurture it. So very heavily involved at Calabar. My nickname was Froggy.
How come?
Froggy, I don't know. I guess the big eye them.
Oh.
But my nickname was, and I was one, I know Froggy is a popular high school name. I think I was one of 2 Froggies. So there's a senior guy. So by the time I went up in the room, he had graduated. Yeah, so I was Froggy. That was my nickname for all of high school.
And I never like bullying Froggy, just Froggy?
No. Let me tell you, and I have to give thanks, Susie and Nakpan Wood. I've never experienced bullying in school. I've seen it, but not in prep school, not in high school. It was a different time then. I think there were bullies, but you see, we didn't have a big mouth.
True.
I've never had a fight as a child, ever. Because I talk way out to bad up people. People didn't feel them out. So they love me. So I've never had a physical fight, never been bullied. And was always able to reason with all kinds of people. So the bad boy, them, the older student, them. One time, the older student love give you money, give like I patted it and bring back change. When they tried that with me, was selling for the 6 for a black, and I said, but this isn't enough money. Hear him say, no, I said, no, but if you want all of that, you're gonna have to give him more money. Cause me clueless, me not pick up the rate. And I mean, I don't have any problem but to get it for you, but this is not enough money. And when he realized, after him say, nobody can trouble me. He look out for me, took me on this week because he couldn't believe the boldness and the brightness. And the being said, but this is not enough money if you want all that. This can't buy.
You don't understand, say I tax you, I get tax.
Yes. It tax fly over my head.
But at least him did good enough to take you on them and stand.
Yeah, man. Him said, no, man, that you are special. Him said, no. Him said, you're special. You special. So, anybody trouble you, anybody come find me on the block. And because, back in them days, junior students couldn't go on the 6 farm block.
Yeah.
You remember, yeah, man, so him telling people, them say, me have clearance. Anytime I need him, I will be, I can. Yeah, man, he literally, whenever I see him, say, everything all right? Nobody troubling you? And he used to check up on me with teachers. He would check up. So he took it seriously.
Nice.
Yeah, man, because he said, no, man, you special. You. and then say, you talk proper. And say, you talk nice.
Yeah.
So some other people, it would have become something negative and a bully. Right. He was genuinely, first of all, look at his face. When I say it first, he was like, what did I use?
Yeah.
And then it became almost admiration, but him serious? He honestly not understand where I go on. Yeah, so fond memories of Calabar and going to school. And knock on wood, not experienced bullying, seen it, and defended people, but never been bullied personally.
Okay, nice. So a Calabar, then the performer come out, or the performer was developed?
Yes, and performer, and and involvement in that leadership, taking charge of things. That's where that part of me come out. And then of course the teacher see it as well, and classmates. So sometimes people would volunteer for things and say, Fabian, we'll do that, man. And yeah, so the magazine committee, I think I was editor for the year I was when I graduated. Yeah, so that's where I really got into myself and my identity and personality. So by the time I catch a UE, you know, I had a strong sense of myself. I knew what I liked and wanted to do. So UE, me joined my society, me joined University Stars. I was student coordinator of Philip Sherlock 2 years in a row. My father and my mother nearly married because they said, if you just move your bed, go to Philip Sherlock, no, there you live. And literally, Susie, sometimes Scott used to have to come knock on the door and tell me, say, you feel like a theater now.
Yes.
Philip Sherlock was like a second home for me at UE.
Right.
Between that, and it was, again, UE had a great time at UE. So Faculty of Arts, it was called FAGS then.
I hear that already.
Faculty of Arts and General Studies.
FAGS, yes.
Over time, that has changed.
Yes.
Between there, especially literature department, Harry Mack and Philip Sherlock were my three havens at UE. I was an Irvingite, but I didn't live on campus, so I didn't really do many hall activities. But them three spaces there at UE nurtured me. Yeah, them three spaces and such fun memories and friends and foolishness, but also learning and knowledge and coming into yourself in another level. So I really am grateful for the educational mid-journey, and I guess the choices my parents made of where they sent me, and spirit and ancestors saying, all right. And then you have some boss teacher and lecturer. I maintain you can't pay for that. What them teach me in addition to academics, you can't pay for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm glad I did realize as a student, somewhere in the 3 or 4 year journey, to pay attention, because something special did I go on with them people. Spirit and ancestor nudge me and say, oh, little fellow, pay attention.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we did realize, say, this is not a normal thing. The people you have access to is not a normal thing. And the money where your mother and father pay can't fully pay for what them people are pouring to you.
Nice.
And I'm glad I honor them all the time, because for me, that's what teaching should be. That it's not just the subject you're teaching, you're nurturing spirit and human beings. So it's more than just lesson plan.
Yeah. Nice. So all right. Through the university singers and the dance society and all of that, when you start actually dance?
You know, I was in society, the drama society. Vice president, president. My involvement in dance was later on when I was writing for, we used to always say Gleaner, but apparently it was the Herald. My brain, old age. I really put my resume there, they say, oh, is Jamaica Herald? I mean, is it right for that? I think of Pure Class, a pull-out magazine. I think the Herald became the Observer eventually. So I then used to write for, and I wrote an article. Lakadko came to UE. They were doing a performance for a Japanese funder to do a tour. So it was a free lunch hour concert. I'm sitting in the theater. I don't think I've ever heard of them. And my life changed. I never see nobody dance like that. I never see that. They did Sata. And I think they did Bingy. And I couldn't move. My mouth was open. When everybody gets up and leave me in the theater, same way, saying, oh, let me just watch. And I said, I have to meet them people here. I have to meet a lady here. And that's how Lanternet and Lakat could get on my radar. And then I pitched an idea to the Herald to write a feature article on them. And yes, but I approached Lanternet. I said to her, I don't want to just come and interview you. I want to spend a week with you. I want to come at your rehearsal then. And she looked at me and she said, oh. So she said, I have to ask me dance at them. Because, you know, then people were very bitter about Lanternet. She did just come back from foreign. She was this mad woman, this loud woman, and she did start pay her dancer then. She was the first professional dance company in Jamaica to start paying dancers.
Okay.
Because everybody else was dancing for the love of it. There was no pay, yeah, man. And so people never saw, Lantinette personality big.
Yeah.
So she said she admitted that she did nervous. And she said she talked to her dancer and she said, okay, them say yes. Because she said nobody has ever made a request like this. As opposed to come to an interview and leave. We spent a week. And that's what happened. I spent the week, went to the rehearsal. So I see her cuss bad word after there. Bling slippers after there. People cussing the rehearsal. So I saw the good, the bad, the ugly, and the in-between. Which is what I wanted. I wanted we didn't want a real image, a real picture. And the last night, when it was my last night before writing the article, they invited me to join the circle that them do at the end. And that was because she said, as far as we concerned now, you're a member of the Lakaka family. And that was it. So that is how I got to start. But join the company. And I was never really a dancer. I mean, which my parents did send me a dance class when I did young.
Yeah. Okay.
But I performed in a season on stage. I got a dramatic role. I had the role of the griot when she did a slavery thing. And it was awesome. And they had movement and thing. And and somebody can say, yes, I performed in a Lakadka season on the stage at Liquor Theatre for the 2 weekend there. Nice. Some people actually came back, including Lantinette's mother, to say them come back to see me. Because them say, Fabian, over in the corner, him out there. As her mother said, he might go on with a whole heap of things. So I say, Mommy, come back. She said, are you? She come back to see Fabian. She said, Fabian, she come back to see
But you say that no people don't know say I did dance.
I was very much in Lakadka and performed in a season.
Nice.
Yeah, that dancer, Susie, I think we call Ancestral Truth in the name. It's when the curtain opened, the backdrop was I think she got somebody to paint the cover of a history book as a backdrop. And dancers are hanging from the roof, but you don't see them when they curtain, nobody looks up when you look. So you see when the dance starts and then you start see bodies coming down from the lantern. It is a visionary. She, that woman there. And that dance was the whole first half. It was 45 minutes long.
Whoa.
So it was a whole first half. And then the second half was other dances.
Nice.
And that I always love about her. She think outside the box. She's a maverick. She's a trailblazer. And she would tell you, mad woman. She tell you, she wake up and she dream the choreography. Because there's some things you're like, where this come from? And she tell you, I had a dream. You know. Aston Cook, my colleague, God rest his soul, directed me my first play, my first formal official play, was a Hall Anthony Ellis play named John Crow Notebook. That was my first play, University Drama Society, at UWI, and have not looked back since.
So the stage.
Me do about 3. I've done small film things, commercials. I was an extra, but nothing major in film. But my theater is my acting thing, and that's where I decided I wanted to direct as well. I said I want to do what these directors do. I like this relationship. So that is where I said, I think I want to learn how to do this. I think I can do this.
Nice.
So you is where serious acting. So here the interesting thing with university singers. Was in the choir, was a tenor, learned all the songs. They never sang on stage at University Singers. You know what that was? I was a stage manager. I used to MC the show.
Yeah. So
I would dress up in a pretty dan and go out and compare. That was my first major MC because them say, your energy, your personality. And I think it was a buck up. I think something had happened and I had to make an announcement. And them said, no, man, Fabian.
Nice.
And so every season, and people sometimes write or come and say, Fabian is just as much a part of the entertainment as the singers.
Nice.
So I never sang on stage with University Singers.
Whoa.
I was a compere and I'd go, I have the notes, announce section them and talk to the audience and I was a stage manager. And I was also the PR manager for UE Singers, but I never sang on stage with them.
Yeah. So what about the writer? When you write play, you write inspirational book and thing, write story, poem, when that
I'm going to say, so between Calabar High School, with Miss Marvel and the essay writing, and UE as well, doing literature, finding my voice and developing the writing skill and the energy. I honestly don't remember when I wrote my first play or poem. I don't remember.
Yes, yes.
But I'm going to say UE was an active time. And then a major writing time was I went to New York. The 5 years I was in New York, that is when I really, really stepped into and embraced the writer in me. I did a whole heap of writing in New York, and I think I published for the first time when I was living in New York and became a spoken word performer in New York. So that journey solidified in a New York, not so much Jamaica. Yeah.
Nice. So, I see you have quite a thing, so you're one specialist in a performing arts, right?
Yes.
What you do as a specialist now in a performing arts? What a person they would do? What you
everything. So a specialist has some kind of above knowledge of aspect of the thing. And that's for performing arts. So from management, from rehearsal, scripting, dramaturgy, creating script from scratch, coaching actors, set design, doing music, the whole shebang, teaching it, coaching in it, and having a love for it. And here's the interesting thing: never studied it formally academically, never did no degree. And it was, as you get older, you meet people. I remember myself and Michael Hogan having a conversation one day, and some other people saying, "We're not afraid for because we're a specialist. Look up what a specialist is and does, and see." And then I think somebody said, "You realize that you're a specialist in performing arts, right? And they said, tell me what you do, tell me what you've done and what you can do in performing arts." And the person's like, "You're a specialist. Every single area you've adjudicated." So I was like, okay. So for me, a specialist in anything has above average knowledge and can execute on almost all areas or aspects of the field. So you've had the experience and knowledge and you can execute. And so for me, it's everything. So I've done everything, like I said, MC, produce lighting, sound, and I've been blessed to have teachers along the way to teach me, who have guided me, who I say, "Can you show me this, what this mean?" Or who I can call and consult and draw knowledge from them. So I give thanks for that as well, because then them teach and mentor them crucial on your journey. That learning, that experiential thing that goes beyond theory, but also people who are experts in a film area. Yeah. Sometimes even icons who teach you some tricks of the trade and pull it in. And the chappie would say, "I was working on this," and them say, "You want to come with me? Come." So I go on to sit down and watch him and observe him. And then them say, "Hold this," and I say, and that's how I learned the lighting thing and the reflector and so I said to the young people now, pay attention. Volunteer. Talk to harass producers and say, I come stage manage. If you have a stage manager already, can you observe? Can you? I said, because no learning is lost on you. Nothing is lost on you. Go up on the set and say, "I'll carry water." And observe. Look how them set up shots and color coordination. Because not everything you're going to learn formally in a classroom, but when you're in the inner the trench, down inner it is where learning happens. And so I think I'm glad I see more young people saying, "Let me volunteer. Even if they're not paying me, let me volunteer and let me see how box office run. Let me see how you promote. Let me see how you," because that's important.
Yeah. All right, so in 2012, Mr. say you start the group Tribe Sankofa.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, and we know say still are going strong.
Yeah, man, Tribe Sankofa. And it's interesting, there was a few experiments with people performing, but they weren't called Tribe Sankofa. I think we did like 2 performances. Almost all of them were in the original tribe, because then they say, okay, so we are formally this group called Tribe Sankofa, and we did our first self-produced show as Tribe Sankofa on December 5th, 2012 at Red Bones. Named Tribe Sankofa. Yeah.
Right. The picture nice though for real. Me nah like it have a vibe.
Yeah, and you right. Big up yourself, sir, right. You know when somebody love Mr. Right, love take picture and it shows in his work.
Nice one.
Yeah.
Powerful. Yeah, so me just ask if you just tell you what the word Sankofa mean. Tell me what make you start the group and then like some big things what the group go on with over the years.
So Sankofa coming in my life first, the movie Sankofa, Haile Jerima. Muta Baruka is in it. And it's about a model who during a fashion shoot get propelled back in a time into slavery. And so Sankofa. So Sankofa means, it's a Dinka term that means there's nothing wrong in going back to get what you forgot. And the Sankofa bird is always drawn looking backwards with what looks like food in its mouth, and the food is said to be hope for the future. And I was like, what a great idea, because if you don't know where you're coming from, you can't know where you're going. And also, if you forget the lessons then that you learned in the past, you're going to repeat them. So I love a phrase from there.
Yeah.
Then fast forward to years later, Erykah Badu dropping our life with the Ankh symbol, and she used to always explain what it means. And me say, yes. So I always found a connectivity with the idea of Sankofa, the Sankofa symbol, and the Sankofa bird. And so tribe is a performing as collective, and that I love the word tribe because for me, we're not just a group of performers, it's a family. It's a family unit. I wanted a functional and safe space. We can deal with the drama and the diva them and the high maintenance behavior. Because so many performing art spaces, people hate each other. Them hate each other like poison. Cannot manage that. And I wanted a space where people could be seen and heard and loved, standing in them truth. So I always say, for me just as concerned or more concerned about who we are off stage as who we are on stage. And I believe that the off stage liberty, that authenticity pours into the stage. It influences what we do on the stage. So when people come and see us performing, then we feel the truth of who we are off stage. And for me, that's Tribe Sankofa. So we started out being known for spoken word and poetry. And doing atypical things, so things when most people, other people now do. So we did Love from Long Time. Nana Good is one of our favorite poets. And then our major season called Word Soul was always Word Soul with a descriptor. So we did, the first show was Word Soul, the Red Bones edition. Then there was Word Soul, the remix edition. Then I had the crazy idea from Spirit to do a show called Word Soul, the Lorna Goodison edition, and flying Miss Lorna from Farin. She lives in Canada. And that was awesome, blew her away. She said to me, the nicest thing anybody ever did for her.
Nice.
She said, the flying in and the show. So that's our main season. But then we started to expand and do short plays, dub poetry. So we expanded. So right now I call us an all-inclusive group. One of the big things is I sent an abstract to present a paper at Carifesta when it was in Barbados. I forget which, I think it might have been 2018. So I also sent an abstract for Tribe Sankofa to perform. Both were accepted. And actually, we were going to do an excerpt from Word Soul, the Lorna Goodison edition. Apply for funding from Chase. Chase make me feel so I get some money. We link the ministry say, yeah man, if Chase give you money, you can be part of the Jamaican contingent, yada, 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 yada. Long story short, Susie, Chase not give you no money. And the ministry did not include us in the... But me say, we are catching to Barbados. So go for me, friend and family. So a contingent of, I think 7 of us, me and 6 tribals, very much ended up in Barbados. We weren't part of the Jamaican contingent, which we had to pay, like for some of the stuff. But we performed, it went well. It was a great experience. Our sister group, our sister brother group, Quilt was there. And Quilt is, in the Jamaican performing as Nancy, Quilt is a group most like us.
Okay.
And plus Rayan, the director, the founder of the group, I met Rayan and directed Rayan when he was in JYT as a younger youth. To see their show, remember we have to pay. Quilt gave us because they were part of the Jamaican contingent. So since they did it on stage, they gave us their free passes to wear to watch them.
Oh, nice.
Nice. I remember he called me and said what he felt, because when they had the road march, they had a road march thing to go down to the main field where the thing was, but you have to pay to go in there. And he said, boy, Fabian, he said, it's a certain team, I feel bad. They see the tribe, but they march and have to turn back at the gate. Because, you know, our money did tight, we never have no extra money. So he said, make sure to come on the show, call me when you come, and I will collect the quilt passes and I'm going to put them on and come watch. And that's how we saw that night of the show. But I'm glad we went. Yeah, that was a major thing for us. And then the seasons we put on, each time matured us a bit more. But for me, that core thing of us being a tribe and a family and loving and looking after each other is paramount. I'm from nearly 10 years now, Susie, and now it's time for rise.
Yeah.
10 years, so we prove that we're not a fluke. It's not a fluke. So I want to look at grants and fellowships and things abroad, and with Africa, South Africa, partnerships, just broadly expanding the brand and the tribe and what we do and how we show up. And it's a year-long celebration, so I'm excited about that. And we're doing a couple of major things, including a world premiere of a new documentary about hair, and a major live streaming show on December 5th, the actual day of the anniversary. So I'm grateful, and blessing and loving every single tribe was passed through the space. Some of whom are coming back to do things for the season. And as you know, our movement director are into America. Rick living in New York. When Rick Boston went to New York, Nick said, please don't get confused and think I'm leaving tribe. He said, forever tribe. So don't take me out of any of the groups. I'm still in tribes and Sankofa though. And Kayla, who's in Canada, same thing. Kayla said, okay, so just to be clear, I am moving to Canada. This has nothing to do with me being a tribe. And I'm like, because guess what? With the virtual reality, that's possible.
Yeah.
So we're grateful for them things there. Give it thanks. 10 years, yes.
10 years, wow. Yeah, man, that's big things. All right, so right now, you know, some have to ask about language, right? Of course. Yeah. So, how you use the language, right? When you perform, when you direct, you actor them, and how tribe use language.
So I'm going to start by saying he's a Jamaican language champion.
All right.
Have always loved the beauty, the cadence of the language, the musicality, but also the history. You know, the idea that our ancestors, you're taken from where they were, force-fed the master's language, and you find a way to recreate a way, and them used to deliberately mix up the tribe them, so the people couldn't talk to them one another, and them say, oh, what you know about we? What you know about we? We are going to create a new way. And so that historical thing of Jamaican language, or some people call Jamaican Creole, existed from slavery time and has come down to us. So it's not broken English like that. Hubert Devonish, I have to pick up his name, he taught me linguistics and turned on that switch in me, the love of linguistics and tracing the language. And, you know, and Dr. Devonish, he was so passionate about it. He made it come alive. And I'm like, what? So I became really interested in it. And then, you know, functioning bilingually. So I've always, not care how formal the speech or the setting, I mix code, I switch code. I use patois, on patois. I respect people who speak, whether they are, you know, me select, bass select, accolect, whatever range on the language spectrum you are, everybody deserves respect. So you honor people and you realize if somebody's speaking mostly or only Jamaican language, they're no less than you. And here's something I learned, and I think the seeds were planted from those days with Dr. Devonish. You adjust how you listen, don't get people to adjust how they speak. People talk how them talk. What you have to adjust is the way you listen to them, because you're used to a particular sound, and then also patience. Take your time, talk to people, and then make people talk to you so you can understand. So that's always been my thing. So I love the Jamaican language one more time. Me call it, AKA, come out back with the nation language.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important. And we want to see us use it to teach. English should be taught as a second language in Jamaica because it is a second language. And we need to honor the nation language and use it to teach people English. This is not wrong. This is the way it's saying a patois, and this is how you say it in English. So you help people make that shift. And so we use it, we do standard English, we do mixed standard and dialect, we do Jamaican language, in terms of how we talk to each other. I believe it has to be celebrated. And look, hear the thing, Susie, the rest of the world gets it, you know. The rest of the world not confused.
I'm not confused.
Jamaica is literally, we are literally, not figuratively, a dot on the map. We are a dot on the map, yet the world is taken with us. Our language, our music, our culture. So why them get it and we not get it? Why are we dishonoring each other and saying you're dunce? People only speak like that. And right now, somewhere in Jamaica, a child is being told speak properly.
Yes, yes.
So right now, somewhere in Jamaica, somebody's being shamed for dropping an H. Me say H make for drop.
Hey, everybody drop it though. What are we want?
Thank you. And even that, I said people, there's a name hypercorrection where we take off H's from where they belong and drop them. It's a thing. And I said, even the African tongue, I said to somebody the other day, I said the words, the SM and SN was difficult for the African tongue. So then putting another sound, simit and snake. I said, not done. It was hard for them to say. Their tongue did not know how to write. So them say, okay, we can make this easier. Snake. It's easier to say.
Yes,
so yeah, it's an important thing for me, and I really want us as a nation to get better and do better with it. This is 2022, and we have not proclaimed Patois as our nation language yet.
Not
what?
Yet.
This we Jamaica, with the rest of the world, want to be us and want to learn the language and want everything Jamaican. And we have not officially said yes. This is a legitimate nation language. That's crazy to me. Me can't wrap my head around that. It is and you know much people waiting for trained people to teach Patois. People are earning money abroad because they're getting work as translators.
Yep.
And I'm like, the things we'd also have to reclassify who we're calling illiterate. Because it means you would not be illiterate. This would be your first language.
I might be part of the problem.
Writing now, with the writing thing, we bring that into the mix, but it would shift so many things in Jamaica. If we say, this is our nation language, it is a first language, and it is legitimate. My students, and I was teaching drama, asked me, so we can write and do the skits in Patois? Because the principal at that school said Patois was dirty and dunce and was a language of Butus. She would come on the P and say, English spoken here. Remember, ladies? Yes. The principal who was a dark-skinned Jamaican woman.
Oh God, no, what I gotta say.
The students had to ask, is it okay if we write in our journals in Patois and if we speak and use Patois when doing our skits? And we say, yes, I said we're bilingual. Yes, 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 yes. But they had to ask because before they were told it is a Butu language and they must speak properly. This is a high school in Jamaica.
Like how you say your group deal with some outlandish things. We're not forgot to take on the language thing at some point.
Look, yes, but I think so. I definitely think so.
Out of the box things, yeah, man. Definitely.
Man. I agree with my heart. Look on the work of Miss Ludo. Look on the work of Miss Ludo.
Yeah.
And you know, them used to cost Miss Ludo, you know, she should know better. Look how she get her education and this Bogo Yaga language and what to honor the word.
At the same thing them doing right now. Right now,
yes.
Remember do it with Caroline Cooper. Every time she put out her article in a Patois, yeah, you go get your PhD and you this, that, and you want the whole of it stay down.
Susie, my father and me used to have that. This is what my father said.
Oh, Lord.
He's a hypocrite. Because me have the benefit of a good education. Why am I encouraging people to talk bad? My father, black power, conscious, love himself, pride. And I said, Daddy, you who teach me everything we know about black pride and being a man, you, I said, the colonizer has won, Daddy. And he was serious. He thought, he said, I love you, you're bright, but you're wrong with this. This Patois thing is foolishness. People must talk properly, must learn. I said, nobody's saying, but as you know, a lot of people, what them hear is Patois and no English. And nobody's saying that. We're not saying do away with English. We're saying honor the nation language and be ambidextrous with the language. Be bilingual. stop dishonoring. But father said, no, no. And the same thing, he said, you have your degree, so why are you encouraging people with this foolishness about talking patois? It used to grieve him.
And listen, part of the problem I know, in a fidem mind, patois mean you're done. So
yes.
if you're talking patois and you can only talk in patois, the man you don't.
In fact, the only reason you would have talking a patois is because you don't know no better.
No, right.
That's the mindset.
Yeah.
That people who can speak properly would not opt to speak patois. Yeah. And it breaks my heart. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. Because here's the thing, Susie, I'm going to write one paper about this. The majority of the people, the Jamaican icons, who become visible and known and proponents of our culture, do not speak standard English.
Nope.
But we're standing on their shoulders. That's who the world knows. From reggae music to even our athletes, the majority of those athletes are speaking Jamaican language. Yep. And we are big up yourself and pat yourself on the shoulder. I keep saying this is one of the top twang. If you have a thick Jamaican accent, make them put subtitles like everybody else. Stop trying to fix how you speak.
If a patois alone you know you talk, that man make them,
thank you.
Them put them subtitles and whatever else.
The question I always ask is, you hear Spanish people at twang?
Never.
You hear African people at twang? Them just talk, Who catch it, who not catch it, too bad. And you subtitle it, simple thing.
Yeah.
But that need to clean up and fix up comes from a place of inferiority. So I have to fix up how I speak so you can access it. No, as somebody talk. And yeah, we in academia or in work, professionally, when you have somebody from outside, you slow down, you speak more silently, but you're not ashamed of how you talk. Because here's the thing, 9.5, 9 3/4 time out of 10, Susie, them want to hear the patois. They're fascinated with it. They say, how come you guys speak so much English around me? Is it because of me? Sometimes them ask you, like I expected to hear more patois, because when them go to Cuba, them are going to hear Spanish.
Oh, yeah.
When them go to Africa, them are going to hear the native language then. Them expecting to hear more patois, and them saying, and they're saying, God, you guys speak so much English. And it's true. Yeah, it is a leap I'm hoping we take, because let me tell you, I believe with every fiber of my being, and I've done some research on it, it would shift so much in our country, not the least of which is people feeling better about themselves, not feeling shame, not feeling like they have to smile up themselves, not feeling like this have to be right people, we can't say nothing. Because when you go to meetings, workshops, training, Susie, sometimes I have to beg the ancillary staff to talk and the guard on them, because they're so used to being overlooked. Them sit down and them look nervous, them look out of place. And when them share rich nuggets, wisdom, and sometimes they start them and they say, talk or you talk. You hear? Talk or you talk. Everybody in here will understand. And when you free that up and them start sharing, like, look at that. Yeah, it's such an important hurdle we need to overcome. Yeah.
One of the last thing them know me that think, you see, when time like with the JCDC and some other people who perform in a patois, it's this big thing, this outlandish thing. You know, have nobody attack, nice and calm. How would I really deal with that one then now? Because we are trying to get the patois in every little crevice and corner. We want to say it can't use a quote. We want to say
you see me hold my head and say, whoa.
In a newspaper and so, but if the whole thing, whenever them attacking a patois, them have to and
here's a powerful and painful thing, Susie. When we Jamaicans and we speakers of the language feel say it have a loud and brawling, it's a mirror of how we see ourselves and what we feel about it. So everything is cuss. So even with Miss Lou, sometimes me grieve at the JCDC table. Because I said, them not understand the poem. None of that Miss Lou writes. The tone and the texture different. Everything is, and I'm like, ooh. So the nuances, the sweetness, the rhythm, and again, because this is how the teacher teach them. It's a big contemporary tracing match. And my thing is not, I don't mind when it's an interpretation thing. So you decide to stage it because you've misunderstood it. You think this is what it is, but that is not the rhythm. So even some of the sweetness, so one of my favorite ones, and we did it in Love Letter, and I forgot David Shaw named. David did a bonus job. The sweetness and playfulness of Love Letter. Darling love, me little dove. The sweetness, I goes to you like a, but when me hear people do that, we think it heavy. So we have to rewire that thinking. We have to rewire that thinking, the sweetness, the playfulness, the subtlety of the language. And again, here's one of the shifts that has happened, Susie, because a lot of the grandparents are at Gal and at Boya Road. They're not hearing older people talking with that rhythm and that cadence. So you're not hearing grandmothers and grandfathers telling the story and talking to you in all kinds of registers. Them hearing one kind of cuss and trade, that's what they're hearing. So because a lot of the grandparents are younger now, but back in my day, grandparents and them say, come here, young son. What a way you grow up big.
So, Fabian talked to me about him early life, how him grew up in England and Jamaica, and how him start perform, how him end up in a movie and him start dance. Him talk about how him feel about the language in Jamaica. For him, that are the nation language. Last year, him group celebrate 10 years in the world. Make sure you go check out Tribe Sankofa on social media and YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to Broadcast Jamaican on YouTube. And if you like the program, just click the thumbs up button under the video and click the little bell on the side so you know anytime we post one new show. Join me said time next month for another episode of Talk to Me. Take care.
Talk to me, let me tell you my story. Hear a little something about the journey. A Jamaican make me.